I wonder what this streaming is doing with people. I see more and more people are watching the stream thing. They're just staying in bed. Come here! Don't stay in bed. Okay, Tomi Janez is a Slovenian theater director and professor at the Academy for Theater, Radio, Film and Television in Ljubljana. Finishing his own directing education, Tomi still felt he missed something in the work with actors. He started a research that lasted for many years and got to know many different methods and approaches, from the different styles of American method acting to traditional Stanislavski work and physical-based training and work. During this research, he took education as a psychodramatist. Psychodrama is, as probably most of you know, not a form of acting or aesthetical theater method, but a form of therapy, using role play and constellations to examine or understand one's own conflicts and dilemmas and traumata. Tomi's approach to theater can probably best be described, at least superficially, as both emotional and intellectual, using the stage to make playful, theatrical, and absurd images, but always somehow in a relationship to or with complex references to European theater and art. Tomi is working all over Europe, he's highly acclaimed. In Norway, mostly for Doppler and Ubu the King at Trøndelag Teater. He has also been teaching here at our academy several times. Welcome, Tomi Janez. Should we start by you telling a little bit about your journey as a director, just some highlights?
I gathered a group. I gathered a group before entering the academy, and I did a performance. And this, I feel, as kind of a start. I felt like a director. And then during the studies, I was lucky to be invited already as a student to do a professional production. So in my 4th year, I was directing at Ljubljana City Theatre. And actually, I did a performance there which has something to do with psychodrama. It is a play called Ekus, Peter Scheffer's play. Also, there was a film made based on this play. And then during the 1st year, I felt the need somehow to understand more about what's going on with the actor. So I exposed myself, I put myself in the role of the actor and tried to train to understand better what's going on in this dialogue.
Between a director and an actor?
Exactly. And so we also established a studio for research on the art of acting, and we invited people to come there to hold workshops. And so my first years were somehow, this studio was kind of a laboratory, and then I tried to find places in theater. And one of these theaters, probably the most important for me, was Mladinsko Theater from Ljubljana, which is well known around the world, and it was possible to work there on long-term projects. So I started to work there with this ensemble through several years, because there was the performances that we did were on the repertoire there, so we could continue working on them. And this work was very much connected to the, let's say, this research in the studio. So these techniques, let's say, this acting approach, which wasn't very familiar in the theater in those days, I tried to apply it. And so we worked on a performance like for months or for 1 year, and
And you had the possibility to do that.
yes, yes. And these were, and I did there 4 performances. 2 of them were based on Chekhov plays, and these 2 performances became quite known. We traveled with them, and then there were somehow, let's say, other stages because I became. I mean, I was interested also in other means, let's say, of theatrical communication. And also I did projects which were, you could say, post-drama theater. They weren't based on plays, or they weren't based on text at all. And then I made a pause also at a certain moment. I felt like, actually I thought to quit theater altogether, because it became almost like I felt like I was on a train and I could not, I felt like I need to step off because it's just leading me somewhere.
Somewhere you didn't want to go.
Or something that I didn't know whether I want to go or not. But basically, it affected, this artistic life affected my personal life very much, and it was a personal crisis, I would say. And but also, on the other hand, I felt that I finished something, that I succeeded in, I don't know, in reaching some objectives, artistic objectives.
So what were you searching for? What did you miss in the work with actors, and what you knew
before this?
Yeah, in your search, when you start to kind of make a laboratory and research different forms of acting and techniques and so on. What were you missing?
So one of the things is that at the academy, I felt like that what was discussed, I didn't see on stage. So I heard I felt like that some craft is actually missing.
What kind of craft?
That there would be events on the stage which would create some kind of wonder in me, or which would take me somewhere, or that I would really believe an actor doing something, or some kind of truthfulness. Also,
that lacked.
Yes,
you missed
absolutely. That. Yeah, I felt that there is big potential in theater as such, but of course, it's also normal for a young artist to be critical of everything that you see. But I felt like I also compared this to the movies. I felt like, okay, I mean, there's something that some film actors that I like do, and I don't see that in our theater. And so I appreciated very much when I saw that rare moment. And now comes an actor, a legendary Slovenian actor, comes to my mind, because it was one of the first times and rare times when I saw truthful emotion in the present moment on stage, and I was completely overwhelmed by this. It was for me really something very, very different. It wasn't like actors pretending, trying to convince me that they feel something, but something was really going on. So this guy started to sweat. He took the handkerchief. I saw that a tsunami is rising in him, and it was like the whole wave went into, And this is when I learned about method acting, because he was method trained, and he's still alive, incredibly incredibly talented. Yeah.
But then you moved on to psychodrama.
No, then I started to train. This was during my student years, and then I started to train. And before I started I met psychodrama in 2000. I started the education in 2006. I finished it in 2012, and this 2012 was a kind of a. I returned to theater in 2012, and it was kind of a new chapter for me. I did again the Chekhov, I did the Seagull, and it was a completely new type of a process. Which we worked for almost 1 year and a half on that performance, and yeah, I came back to theater with some kind of new understanding of the group work, and it was I would say that work changed not only my life but probably also a little bit the lives of the people who worked on that performance, and also maybe some people who saw it. Yeah.
What I mean, since you are a psychodramatic dramatist, you are actually a therapist.
Yes.
You're a trained therapist.
Yes.
What do you bring into your work from that kind of training? That kind of.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I must say that these are different roles. So, for example,
Yes, of course. To be a director and a therapist
So let's say that
should be different roles.
Yeah. So you should imagine that when I'm in the role of the therapist, I hope, a little bit more normal. I mean, I'm not so, because it's great. I learned from
But
this.
you are also known for challenging actors.
Yes.
In the working space.
Yeah, but that's not. That's.
Yeah. No, it's different roles. I'm just curious about what is the overlap here.
Yeah. So also in therapy, I'm not interested in clinical praxis. So I'm not. I've been interested in creativity. So basically, there are creative. When I speak about therapy, there are mostly. It's experiential psychodrama where creative people, also many artists, come to deal with the issues that we are all dealing with in different ways, to grow, to overcome, some personal issues which interfere with creativity. Or creativity in the broad, is for Moreno it was a very broad term. It wasn't only artistic creativity, but it's also creativity you create through relations and so on and so on and so on.
You can rehearse your life, he says, for instance.
Yes, you can rehearse new roles.
Yeah.
So one of the things that this role gave me was, for example, as a psychotherapist, you don't demand, you don't expect. It's completely different from being a professor, from being a theater director. You are there for the person. The person does the steps that feels like doing, that has the need to do. There's no pushing. There's there's a witnessing of a process and being there for someone. But this is a little bit different because in the role of the theater director, you might have some conflict of, it's slightly different because, there's maybe the opening night date, or there are different kinds of, That is why I like more and more to work out of this type of context. This was an exception, actually. What I did was in Norway, it's almost like an exception. I don't work anymore in this 8 weeks, because I don't need to. It's much more interesting for me. I'm working now, I think I said that I work with a group of actors in Mladinsko, this same theater, after 14 years or something, again. And it's much more exciting to spread, for me, to spread a process through, the whole year, to meet, every month or 2 months or whatever, and have
to develop it over longer time. And
yes, but it's also important for me to be with some topic. Can you imagine you are dealing with, some important book, or the book that you, or some topic. In this case, the topic was Don Juan, Yeah, there are more than 400 plays or something like that. It's so interesting to research why it is such a myth. What is the, you can't do that, I think, or at least I am not capable of doing, a preparation of few months and then doing a show, in 2 months. I'm not interested. It's so much more exciting for me to be with such a theme for a long period. Yeah. But this doesn't mean that I do just this, or that I would like actors to do just like this. No, not at all.
Understand. We are here under. I mean, this is a festival for researching acting and performative strategies. So, this year's topic is polyvocal acting. So, talking about the actor as someone that have many layers, have different voices, different means of expressions, and so on. So, what is your approach to the actor? What is your initial kind of how do you think about the actor in your process? How do you deal with the actor in the process?
I would say that acting became almost like a door through which I understood not only acting but also art as such, and theater directing, and step by step I understood that I'm learning more from acting than in real life, so-called real life. This was already in the training of these techniques. I understood that I came to certain insights or understandings through this, should we call it, I don't know if it is a simulation or what is it, but through being in certain roles. And I understood only later through psychodrama, let's say, which is based on Moreno's theory on roles, understood more somehow what was going on. So, yeah, for Moreno, a human being was an actor. And this not because I'm repeating this often, but so it's not because the human being is faking all the time or is pretending all the time or has some kind of social masks all the time. It's not about that, but just because by being alive, by being functional, you are always in a certain position, you are a certain role. We cannot avoid roles. We are in a certain roles now. Yes, they're in certain roles. When I'm there, I'm in a different role, and 15 minutes ago, when I was with the child, I was in a different role. So we are, and not only social roles, but also psychological roles, which are different capacities that we have. And you can speak about very different kinds of roles. And so this brought me to understand that also in acting, which roles are involved in acting in itself. Because I could analyze and start to work with actors on certain specific issues by understanding that being an actor on stage is not just one role. There are at least two roles, which usually the student of acting hears about when she or he comes to the academy, and they tell him, yeah, the actor has an instrument, and then she is both an instrument and the artist who plays on this instrument. And I think the students don't have a clue. What is this supposed to be about?
What that means?
Yeah, and I think I also didn't understand. I understood it in a certain way. I understood it like that. This means that you are doing relaxation exercises and that you are lying on the floor and that you are developing, I don't know, your sensitivity or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I didn't, and also and I understood that the guy called Stanislavski wrote the book called The Work of the Actor on himself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that it was something which has much deeper roots, because it is about the relation to oneself. Yeah? So it has to do with the care for oneself, and this is it's a quite old concept which goes Foucault, by the way. You mentioned Foucault. When was it? Yesterday or two? Yeah.
When we talked outside.
Yeah, when we talked outside. Lectures about this. It goes back to Greece, ancient Greece. Yeah. I don't know the Greek term, but actually it's the origin of all the personal techniques or spiritual techniques. They all deal with the question of how you care, what is your relation to yourself? How do you deal with yourself?
I think Socrates called it his demon.
Yeah.
Is that what you refer to?
No, Socrates said actually know yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this means that we are two. Yeah. There's someone to be known, and there's
somebody
someone who is trying to know this first guy. Yeah. And so this means that the actor has the possibility to be at the core of, let's say, human problem. Because as we spoke yesterday about this problem of being and also being in relation to the first.
So now you're referring to the actor as one that is observing herself and one that is doing. Is that what you're emphasizing?
This is what humans are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, you can trace this also in Upanishads, that you have a bird who is singing and the other bird who is watching the first bird. And it's not this self-observation, like, okay, I'm in front of the camera, I'm moving. No, it's not this, right? It's just that it's actually this little space that we are supposed to have, which is connected to the free will. Imaginary, of course. I mean, it's no, but maybe it's not imaginary. We spoke about yesterday about this thing that happened. We have to go back to I gave a lecture some weeks ago on this topic, trauma and art, and I started this with the image of the Homo, which is not yet Homo sapiens, which goes around with this fire. With the fire. And fire didn't bring a lot of creativity, by the way, So the guy, but it's something important. This is a digression, but maybe it's interesting. So this guy with the fire, what happened? One theory is that because you could burn forests or whatever, the Homo got cooked meat for the first time. Barbecue. This was the start of the barbecue. And because of the barbecue, one theory is that the Homo didn't need such a long intestine.
Mm-hmm.
So
digestion.
it became shorter and shorter.
Yeah.
He had more and more time. Okay? So the Homo is the species who has a lot of free time, and the brain started to grow. So, but this giving fire to this forest went on for a long time. I mean, several tens of thousands of years, and it brought mainly just to a few tools. But then there was this much more exciting moment, which no one has a clue how it happened. But most people agree with Chomsky and this other guy who thought of the genetic, that it's a genetic thing. Yeah? Change, yes. There was the birth of the language. And this is exciting stuff, because it was the first time that there was something which is not something, but there was something which means maybe means something. You mean this. It's the birth of the meaning. It's fascinating. If you enter the role of this, of this
A sound that means something else than the sound, meaning a metaphor.
Yes, it's the birth of the metaphor, or the birth of meaning. It's also interesting that the mean, that's also that maybe the homo became mean, and then that moment, it's connecting meaning to be mean. I don't know, but probably not. But anyway, these early words don't have an original meaning. We know when we go into etymological thing, we know that there are several meanings of some early words. And so this makes several scientists think of the language in terms of art. So that the language is art. It's in a way the first art, because this word means a lot of things. And also because we are using the language we are composing all the time, and language is not evolving, and we spoke about that it's not logical.
The language is not logical.
Right?
Like, for instance.
I gave you this example yesterday, and you thought of your own also, of several.
Give us an example. What do you mean?
I think that yesterday I said that that time, for example, in many languages uses spatial terms, which is not logical at all.
Time is short.
Time is short, and so on. But you gave another beautiful example, which was that
Africa is down, or the economy is going up.
The economy is going up.
Which is metaphors.
Yes.
And it's not logical.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense unless we agree about the contract.
Exactly. Yeah. And now the interesting there are several things exciting in this moment of the language. One, for me, this was like it shook my mind. No, it anyway turned my mind around. Shake, whatever.
Shook your mind.
Shook.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay.
That art started then.
So art starts when the language is getting metaphorically or unreal somehow. It's starting to create something which is not physical.
Yeah. So before there wasn't art. So when the art starts, I will simplify, and it's a naive, like interpretation. So when this started, when this creation of this another world, basically this is a creation of another world which is completely unreal. It's the world of the metaphor, of the meaning of
narrative stories.
It's a parallel world. And this brought to the first time there is me, and also there is I can name myself. Okay? And this is the birth of the question also, why? Like children, we start to ask, why? And so, and this the genesis starts like, oh, shit. Okay, we are in a problem. Okay, I'm there, and I'm aware, and it's the first time that I think, wait, should I go, or should I stay, or should I go? Okay, so there is a moment of dilemma. It's a moment of anxiety, which we are still in. Goes on for since the early days, and so we needed to do something about this.
So consciousness and language is kind of birth traumata of civilization and art and the expressions of mankind. Is that the way to say it?
Yes, this is when the same period starts then the art, and in the same period start, let's say, religion, and in the same period start the myth. You cannot divide them. In this same moment. And it was like, for the first time, we meet that, someone dies and is replaced with this, someone takes a big, huge stone, or something which is a material that will last forever, and we have something that substitutes the person's presence, which is gone. And this art is not there to imitate, is not a portrait, but is there to substitute, is there to prove that life goes on, or that there is soul, or that, but it's not, the concept is not it on one hand is not so sophisticated, because it develops a little bit step by step, that we come to the soul, or that, but actually this moment is the birth of psychology, and is the birth of religion. It is the cognitive revolution, so-called, and is then, with this anxiety, this trauma actually, is the first time that this is a problem. Someone is gone, and I need to I need to invent a story. It's the beginning of the narrative. I need to invent a story to comfort myself. And since that moment, we invent stories continuously, daily, every hour, every minute, to comfort ourselves. And
this is a little bit like when Slavoj Žižek talks about you need a narrative, a story, in order to understand reality.
Yeah.
Is it something similar to that?
Yes, yes. Narrative is, and actually the story that I mentioned here yesterday, was it yesterday, connected to pronouns? It's connected to somehow the experiments connected to narration, to the importance of narrative, because they, yeah.
But how do we then, okay, so back to the actor on stage.
Yeah.
What is the consequences for the work of the actor?
There are many consequences in terms of artistic or creative process if you understand this. So one of the things is that you understand that the idea of art as imitating was a later event. It happened actually in Greek times, and there was an ideological purpose to do that. Plato has reason to put artists as lower species, and there was yeah. Anyway, I think I mentioned Otto Rank, his book on, he goes into detail in explaining how this thing happened through the history. But it has many, for example, for the actor, it has the understanding that what is the one role and the other role, yeah, that we are. I said that the actor can understand, can be at the core of the human problem somehow. Okay, so can experiment with human life much more. Okay, I will try to simplify this. We all were babies, and we were taken care of, yeah. So we were in the position that we could not take care of ourselves, right? We were there, feed me, blah, 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 or whatever, take care. Okay. At a certain point, we grew, step by step, grew up, and we started to take care of ourselves. So we became two. I'm the one who needs something. I'm the one who is taking care or ignores this need. Okay. So this is the relation of the actor's instrument, which is my body, my soul, my mind, my thoughts, my emotions, my history, everything. It's me. It's not the instrument like just the voice and just the body. It's me. The instrument is me. Is the most me I could imagine. It's really me. Okay. This is the instrument. Okay. This is the material. Okay. And then there is the role of how I'm taking care of me, of myself. And this is and this role is being created by introjection, of course, through teachers. That is why it's quite important which teachers you have. because you will develop such a, or which parents you have, or what kind of process you are going through, because you will treat yourself in such a way. You will, it will influence at least. So in this role is the role of the artist, which is different from the role of the instrument. And so artists, the actors, but also artists in different fields, found their own ways to deal with this question. Basically, to use themselves as material, or to articulate their traumas, or
So how you take care of yourself, how you look at yourself, or not look at yourself, and how you're using yourself as an artist is fundamentally important for your art or your expression on stage. Is that what
Yes.
this implies?
It has huge consequences, because we can. You could when you in creative processes, when you encounter problems, most of the problems derive from this issue.
Is that the reason why? Because I was talking to someone on your workshop, and you gave them tasks quite fast. I think maybe probably first day to share private stories and challenges. Is that the reason why that is important to deal with early in the working process?
If I'm going to explain how the workshop is,
No, but just like
you cannot avoid dealing with yourself. You cannot you just cannot escape yourself. It's that simple.
That's why you have to talk about yourself in the creative process.
As a writer, you are a writer. Can you escape yourself?
I'm really trying hard all the time. I can promise you.
I mean, one of the things that made me so interested in the creative process was this. I find it very fake division in artistic schools, old-fashioned. I think it is from 19th century or earlier. This taboo about dividing. This is art and this is therapy. Okay, so this is, or leave your personal stuff outside. I don't know how to. The stage is a sacred place, and you have to be empty. And everyone is pretending and faking, doing that, or even imagining that he's succeeding. This is the most scary part. Because now I'm empty, I'm not personal at all, or whatever.
So the consequence of that we can't empty ourselves is that we have to work with ourselves in the process also.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, yeah. You are doing this in any case, so it's much better to
be conscious about it.
But to do it nicely, to treat yourself nicely. Where it starts? It starts with where it starts. It starts like with the. I have never heard a great pianist or whatever complaining about the piano. Like saying, I mean, I love piano very much, but I was always, repulsed, or how do you say, by the black, or I love the piano, but I cannot accept that it has pedals or something like this, or there's no such a thing. And you see this pianist taking incredible care of listening to this instrument, of establishing such a relation, You're surprised when you see how musicians touch their instruments, how they take care of it, how precious they are. And so I try to imagine whether an actor relates to herself in such a way.
But this means that an artistic process somehow have a therapeutical side.
Of
and
course.
Always will.
Yeah, you cannot divide that. I think. It's the proof that this doesn't. Okay, it has several. These are actually several topics. One is the myth of the connection of the artist to psychopathology. So this means that the artists are crazy, okay? And there's some truth in this. some research is confirmed it, but it's not direct. It's not that because you are crazy you are more artistic, or because you are artistic you are more crazy. But it's just that in the brain there are some things which it's not a cause and effect connection, but it's some other kind of connection. But this the question of therapy and art. Yes, I mean the art. Come on, how many examples about the art is about trauma? I mean, it's about trauma. It's about the collective trauma. It's about the personal trauma. It's about the other person. We are dealing with the drama all the time.
When you brought up the topic of ideology yesterday,
Yeah.
connected to the way we work and think and with art and acting and so on, is it also, could you say something about that, connected to how we deal with ourselves or think about ourselves as a part of the process or not, or pretend to be purely artistic and not bringing ourselves into the working space and so on? Is there a...
I think I mentioned this ideology in terms of that you need an ideology. You cannot avoid an ideology. It's almost like you cannot avoid a narrative, you cannot avoid a myth. So actually what it's much better to play with this, to play with it, not take it too seriously, in a way. Because, yeah, this is when the problem starts, is when we take, this stuff which is actually fiction, yeah, we take it very seriously. And this is an interesting point which we spoke about this, that fiction is actually something that gives us comfort. Rank said the only things that really gives us comfort in life are all fiction. They're not real. It's not that reality gives us comfort. It's something which is not real. It's something which is invented, which is imaginary, which is not real, which is a myth. It can be beautiful, but it's a fairy tale. Yeah?
I think it's David Winnicott,
Yes.
psychoanalyst, that says that the kid, when it gets separated from the breast, what it does is starts to play in order to have a focus, so it doesn't just collapse of the fear of the breast and the mom that disappeared.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so playing is a complete is a way of dealing with traumata.
Yeah, and the only somehow the direction where Winnicott sees a client, to proceed is toward play. The capacity of playing. So the capacity of putting yourself in so many different roles, of not taking, stuff. And this is the actor. The actor has the capacity, or like archetypally speaking, has the capacity of stepping in so different statuses, so different roles, and understanding that that they have in a way the same value. The actor can experience that being a beggar can be as satisfying as being a king. He has the chance to check this. Who suffers more, or who has more pleasure, or who, and theater is somehow the proof of this, that life or the experience of life is not about is actually in the capacity of moving. Yeah.
But
just to finish about the ideology, yeah, this, of course, it's connected, and I just spoke yesterday about, of course, when there is this idea that I will become an actor or an artist, of course I need to identify with a certain ideology. I cannot enter the art realm somehow. I enter when I identify right? And we probably, not probably, the one who considered artists here had this experience. They experienced something and they felt, yes, I'm this too, yeah. Because they identified
But
with,
on the same time, you obviously want to question this ideology, as you did with the student yesterday. You said,
and
so
this
what
is
is truthful? You said.
this is what then starts. This is the one of the struggles that the artist starts to deal with. Starts to deal with this collectivity.
So it doesn't sound like you have an answer to the problem of the trauma to our culture, but we just have to continue to try to work with it, and it's going to be a messy process.
I think so. I mean, and for me,
It sounds for me like you said that, okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the rehearsal process is going to be messy because it's a huge clash of personal stories we bring and personal life and experiences that has something to do actually with the way we work on stage. So it is going to be a mess and it's going to be mixed up. And we can't separate it, even though we should try, but we will not succeed. This is what I hear.
Yeah, but in practical terms, what the experience tells me is that it is possible to clean up the mess in which you are making. It is possible to work with a group, and that this work is joyful and playful and satisfying and fulfilling, and is not at all like the work that you encounter most often in the theater or even in schools, in which you have a bunch of people together as a group and who basically hate each other. And it's not the problem that they hate each other. The problem is that they cannot speak openly about
that they hate each other.
Yes, and how they live with this fact. And this brings to the problem, because this brings to all this different. This brings to this, why people, rarely enjoy really, working collectives, teams or. It's not what I present myself. Yeah, of course, everyone presents, especially in Norway, as being great and very positive. And yeah, we are all constructive. And we can, you can fake things incredibly here in Norway. Yeah.
You can fake the.
Huh?
You mean to be polite and everything is nice?
Yeah, you can. No, you can fake so much that you really split off.
From what you really feel or think.
Yes.
And you think that the consequence of that is that people actually are not in touch with what they really think and feel?
Yes,
You think so?
I
Is
think
that
so.
your experience as a director?
Yeah, that there is a lot of, it brings, of course, to a lot of hostility, which is passive, which is
passive-aggressive hostility.
Yes. That is why you will hear people not truly feeling welcome. Not truly feeling accepted or at ease, and so on. And so this is the tricky. So that is why this is a challenge here, and it has connected. But it's not a This is not. I would not. But I think it has. Okay, this would be a little bit complicated to speak about. But I think it has. Something, it is connected to survival and to virtues, because on the other hand, on the Nordic countries, the virtues are much more present in a certain way. Because I understand the origin of virtues, especially the fourth cardinal, or how do you say, fundamental virtues, as being the first tools of better survival. This is a little bit of digression, but it's interesting. Yeah, the four first virtues are temperance. You say temperance?
I don't remember them, but yeah.
So probably. it's the when you have when you take time for everything, or you have balance in taking time for everything, not just abundance of something, but you can have it all if you just, this is so Norwegian. And it's great. So this is, because you have in other cultures when there is huge exaggeration. Now, why this was important? It has to do with surviving. Because if you exaggerate, let's say, in eating something, a rabbit, I live at the countryside, and the neighbor told me that the rabbit, when he sees this grass and blah, 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 would eat the wrong grass and explodes, Okay, so the rabbit exaggerates. So, the Homo, when he became sapiens, said, okay, stop yourself from eating that grass because you saw that the other guy exploded, yeah? Okay? It's the birth of this one of the first virtues. The second is...
But Tommy, I'm
Okay.
sorry to stop you.
Yeah.
We can't do the full psychoanalysis of the Norwegian people. I would love to hear it, actually. I'm very curious. Okay. But because time is running out of us.
Yeah, sure.
We have to save that one for later. I would love to come back to that.
Okay.
But I really want to open up for a small round of questions.
I'm interested to know that the last, third and fourth.
The four cardinal, they are the four that other virtues derive from. I think it's temperance. The second is the thing that you predict. What will be the consequences. How do I say? Yeah. I'm not good with these English terms, but it's something that you are.
Predictions?
It's connected to prediction. So what will be the consequences? So this means that I'm not impulsive. And it's again, you see, how I come from a different culture. You see how impulsive I am. It brings me to trouble. And and to difficulties in surviving. So it's much better to to not, prudence. You see, prudence. This. Yes, and then you have...
The three heavenly graces are faith, hope, and charity, but the cardinal virtues are prudence, temperance, fortitude.
Yeah, so now we spoke about prudence and temperance, and then we have fortitude, it's like to be brave, courageous, and the fourth is justice. So that which was also important. But I wanted just to stress that the virtues didn't have anything to do with, morality and so on. They are actually... what are the better chances to survive? When we became like with this problem, anxiety, okay, we started to invent stories and we started to understand this little bit. Okay, if you have a free will, use it. You will have better chances to survive, and this is where...
Not in Norway, I think you should agree.
Huh?
That's the best way to survive in Norway, is to agree.
You see?
It is, isn't it? It's a contra consensus. I mean, everybody agrees about that. Other questions? Yes?
Not really a question, but I just wanted to share something because I was in your workshop in Bruges, and I think it was very interesting as an actor to work with the thing you're talking about, getting to know yourself also as a person, but also as an actor, because it's so many things that are not our own words that you told me. Like, I was telling you something and you said, are you sure this is from you, or is it from a teacher or a parent or somebody who put something upon you that, oh, you are like that, you're a thinker, you have to take yourself some time, and then you start to be this person that somebody else is putting on you. And also this preparation we do, like, it was a very fun example you had, that we have to listen to music, or we have to shake, we have to do so many things before we enter the stage, and like, why is that? And so I think psychodrama is a really good thing for an actor to work with.
Cool. And it's very interesting, this thing you mentioned, that like, is a typical thing that acting teachers very often do. They tend to say like, you have to be more, you are like this, or you're thinking a lot, or your body is very tensed, or I mean, we are doing this very much in acting training, I think.
Yes.
Yes, please do.
But again, talking about roles, it's an expectation of roles. It's not just about. We have to be sophisticated about this. It's important because it's not just about the teacher that sort of do this. You are like this and like that, but it's an expectation that comes from both roles. The students wants to be also told.
What you are.
Yes. I give an example. I've been fighting in this school for years to do sort of evaluations where you could sort of talk and where you don't say now you will have to work on this to be a good actor, you know. And this has been huge problem because it also has been sort of a huge critique that it comes back to me all the time because of course people want to be seen and want to be told that now you're on the right way and you're going to be if you do like this you're going to become like this, you know. So it's a sort of again it's a dynamic between the role of student teacher that we discuss very little and we analyze very little and the expectation that are on both sides and now you get trapped on this narrative to satisfy the expectation of the role. So this is something that I think it should be part of educations to really make people aware of the dynamics, the invisible contracts that comes with roles that create patterns that then trap you in saying things and that can create consequences. And I think we have very little conversation about this. And then sometimes when I try to bring it up, it's a very painful conversation because it has something also with identity and the way you understand this role and the expectations to the role. And
Yes,
we
absolutely.
have a long way to go.
Absolutely. Yes.
But
Yes.
just a comment
Yeah.
on this, and on what Rosa also said. What psychodrama is basically putting the inner world outside. So it's the world we live in. So this, actually, you could say unreal world, which is of course real in terms of the consequences in my brain and how I feel and so on. It has real consequences, but it's unreal. It's my inner world, psychology world. You can put this in the space and understand it better. You can observe it, and you can start creating it or structuring it. It takes time, but you can understand better, okay, what are the different dynamics that appear in me? And so this, or if we are speaking also in social terms about invisible contracts, you can make this invisible contracts visible somehow.
You're staging your inner conflicts
Yes.
and trying to
yes.
find out if you can deal differently with them or
Yes.
change them.
Yes. And so this is essentially, and that is why you can, step by step, somehow acknowledge that there are, and this, to connect to polyvocality, you know, Moreno used the term auxiliary ego. So he spoke about many egos.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We
So-
have many roles, we have many egos, we have many possibilities.
Yeah. So these introjects, let's say, which are part of me, you know, psychodrama goes very well with the Kleinian theory, you know, of Melanie Klein. So that they are of the object relations theory. I mean, you were mentioning earlier also. Yeah. And so, you understand that there are so many roles which are part of me, so many objects that there are so-called good objects and bad objects, and how I'm, you know, and that so this somehow creates a completely different psychological dynamics, because there is not this static idea that I am and I'm not good, I need to transform, and people view me, you know, and there's something, you know, static going on, which what you meet many times also with actors who, as young people, come at the school and they are started being taught things about themselves.
Yes.
And they have to live with this. And they even have to go on stage. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. And this is what I felt, okay, it's possible probably to do something about this, right? It's not about just being polite and nice and we love each other. No, it's not about this. But okay, how can we separate, let's say, these processes and so on?
Are there many
Sorry,
that wants to comment? Yes, I know we have are out on time. Just do one more. Yeah. Okay. Please be short.
All right, you talked now about the thought about you having the possibility to see yourself in a way, like you have two personalities, and you talked about taking care of yourself. And is all these exercises you use to make the actor get to know him or herself so well that makes it possible to live truthfully on stage?
Yeah, well, already by being aware of this relation, you know, you can start to deal with the different problems that appear in the creative work. You can deal, because you understand, okay, what is to deal from one role and what is to deal from the other role, and when the other role steps in. It sounds complicated now when we speak about it, but when this work is very practical somehow, and it makes you understand much more clearly and plastically. For example, what is the distance, for example, that Brecht spoke about, or what? Because there is not only these two roles of the instrument and the artist, but there is also the role of the character, and then there is also the role of the audience. So, and you are moving, actually shifting without knowing, through all these roles. Now, the problem when you are not in creative is actually that you are stuck in one role, like in life. You are stuck in one role. You feel like you cannot move further, you know. So and this is the definition. Moreno's definition of spontaneity was that it's a new response to the old situation. So in a way, it's not that this becomes something schematic or intellectual or difficult. It's just the opposite. By discriminating this in the sense of by seeing what is what, it gives space for spontaneity, for playfulness. I don't know if this makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, I think the conclusion is you should really not be an artist without being in therapy. That's dangerous. Thank you very much, Tomi.